Incoming message.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into David Paulides' chilling investigation of vanishings in our national parks. We're going to look at some absolutely compelling evidence. And I promise you, the real mystery here, well, it's probably not what you initially think it is. Let's get right into it. So former police investigator David Paulides has spent years, literally years, collecting cases of people vanishing in U.S. national parks under circumstances that he calls, quote, impossible. Now, whether or not you agree with his ultimate conclusions, he's managed to map out a pattern that is way, way harder to dismiss than just a single, isolated missing persons case. To really wrap our heads around this, we've got to completely shift our perspective. Step away from the campfire ghost stories, the supernatural theories, the monsters, and focus entirely on the hard evidence. Because the true fascination with the missing 411 theory, it isn't about asking if Bigfoot or something paranormal is taking people. The real question is why these specific clusters are so unbelievably hard to explain, even after you strip away every single paranormal assumption. Section 1. Mapping the missing, the investigative method. Leaning into his background as a police investigator, Paulides treats this whole thing like a standard case. He meticulously documents conditions specifically to look for clusters. And I want you to notice the crazy rapid-fire repetition here. These are not random events. We're seeing the exact same weather patterns, identical age ranges, similar terrain, matching distances from the trail, and oddly enough, even the exact same missing items of clothing. It's this highly specific set of variables just repeating on a loop. Now, critics love to point out that natural parks are naturally vast, wild, and frankly, dangerous, which, yeah, is absolutely true. Some people simply get lost, they fall, or they tragically succumb to exposure. That genuinely explains a lot of cases. But here's the crucial point. Paulides isn't saying every single disappearance is mysterious. What he is saying is that this specific subset of disappearances completely defies those standard explanations of exposure or getting lost. Why? Because they share way too many identical details to be purely random. Section 2. The statistical turn. Beyond the paranormal. Okay, this brings us to the actual hinge of this entire explainer. When you completely remove the monsters from the equation, we're left staring at a statistically bizarre pattern that begs one huge question. Why do so many cases involve the exact same profile? Like I said, even if you strip away every single ghost story, these clusters remain statistically super odd. We're dealing with a deeply eerie, repeating profile here. It almost always involves a person near water, usually accompanied by a really sudden, drastic weather change. But you know what the most baffling part is? The victim is either found, or sometimes honestly never found at all, at a distance that specifically defies normal travel. I mean, we're talking about people moving across extremely rugged terrain at speeds and distances that are practically, physically impossible under normal conditions. There's just no way. So, the big takeaway here is actually grounded firmly in reality. Figuring out how people end up miles away in impossible terrain, that doesn't require a monster. It requires better data. Section 3. The real data scandal. Right. Here is the stark institutional failure. And I really want you to take a second to just process this fact. The National Park Service doesn't maintain a centralized missing persons database. Yeah, you heard that right. And without that centralized data, we're completely flying blind. We can't even accurately measure how unusual these clusters actually are because that big picture macro-level data simply does not exist in one cohesive place. It perfectly captures the sheer irony of the situation, doesn't it? A retired investigator on his own noticed a massive pattern that our very own national institutions just failed to catch. The real evidence we found here isn't a footprint of some creature. The absence of records is itself the evidence. Evidence of a system that isn't tracking what it absolutely should be tracking. Our institutions definitely should have caught this pattern first, but they didn't. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought about what is truly happening out there in the wild. Look, we don't have the data to definitively say if something unexplained is taking people in these parks, but we definitely have enough evidence to know the current system is failing us. So, what do you think? Are the missing 411 clusters just a massive coincidence, a byproduct of incredibly bad institutional data? Or is there something genuinely unexplained happening out there in our national parks? It's a wild mystery, but the evidence absolutely deserves a fair hearing. Thanks so much for joining me as we map this out.
Come to me, chickens. Cock-a-doodle-doo.